Let me ask you something. Has it ever happened to you where you begged God for more purpose, more breakthrough, more success, and in response, all you received was silence? You prayed, you fasted, you stayed up late arguing with God, weeping into your pillow saying, Lord, why am I still stuck? Here's the thing. God won't give you what you're not prepared to bear, not because he's cruel, but because he's cautious. He's not holding you back from your destiny. He's holding it for you. You claim to have faith, but are you in training? You desire the platform, but are you built for the grind? You desire the blessing, but is your obedience on target? Even Jesus bypassed none of the process. He went through the wilderness, was tempted, suffered the cross, all before the crown. So if you're in the fire today, if you're in the stillness, if it seems like heaven went quiet, perhaps it's not punishment. Perhaps it's refining. Prepare yourself, because this message isn't for the ones who give up on not yet. It's for the ones who continue to say, not my will, but yours be done. We live in a culture that celebrates speedy success, immediate solutions, and miraculous overnight breakthroughs. We want everything immediately, not tomorrow. We claim to be ready. We tweet about being ready. We even pray as if we are ready. But the thing we do not understand is that readiness is not established by the thrill we experience in a moment. It's established by the reliability we maintain in the dark. True readiness isn't emotional, it's foundation-based. And God is never deceived by words. He's monitoring the weight of our actions. You tell me you're ready for the next level, but can you be self-controlled when no one is applauding for you? Can you be loyal when it's not enjoyable? Because that is what shows God you are really ready, not the caption on Instagram, not the emotional corporate worship moment, not even the pleading prayer during a time of hurt. It is the daily grit, the decision to rise up and appear. That is what he is observing. That is what he is measuring. You might be weeping to God, crying out and saying, why haven't you answered me? But perhaps the more valid question is, have I demonstrated to you that I can receive the answer? You indicate that you desire a great calling, but are you taking time with God in the secret place? Are you putting investment into the unseen disciplines that no one will ever see? The midnight prayers, the forgiveness when it pains you, the obedience at the wrong moment. Because let's face it, we're all great at being ready. We're great at sounding right, looking the part, delivering under pressure. But God does not react to performance. He reacts to preparation. And proof of preparation is discipline. When you're truly ready, you don't merely sound different, you live different. And Jesus himself demonstrated that. Before he entered ministry, he fasted and prayed in the wilderness for 40 days. He didn't bypass the process, he suffered through it. That's what true readiness is. Secret preparation, surrender to the Father, and self-discipline without reward. When God examines your life, he's not examining your potential, he's examining your pattern. And if your life pattern is undisciplined, unorganized, and spontaneous, why would he entrust something holy with you? Consider it. If you won't steward this season responsibly, how can you be trusted with the next? God isn't attempting to frustrate you, he's attempting to strengthen you. He's attempting to develop the kind of strength in you that doesn't buckle under pressure. Discipline is the training ground for destiny. It's where your faith gets stronger, your character gets refined, and your mind gets sharper. And some of the things you're praying for, the platform, the influence, the opportunity, they're weighty. They come with spiritual warfare, public pressure, and constant testing. If you can't bear the burden of rising early to pray, how will you bear the burden of spiritual responsibility? God isn't giving out blessings like lollipops to the most vocal. He's releasing them to the most prepared vessels. And this is where Jesus is our ultimate example once more. He did not just take a stroll into miracles without a bow. He prayed, not my will, but yours be done. That's discipline, that's surrender, that's readiness. We don't say as much about how Jesus prepared. We jump to the miracles, but overlook the quiet times of obedience. But that is where the power was, the private surrender preceding the public impact. Now let's go deeper into the second truth. God's delay is frequently divine protection and not denial. And this one stings, particularly when we feel forgotten, overlooked, or behind. We assume God's silence indicates he's not hearing. We assume the delay indicates we've been disqualified. But what if the thing we're pleading for would actually destroy us if we received it too soon? God has the whole picture. He's not only concerned about your comfort, he's concerned about your capacity. And sometimes he keeps it from you. Not because he's tormenting you, but because he's getting ready the situation, and more so, getting you ready. The very thing you believe you're prepared for may be the very thing that would shatter you. We remember that every blessing is heavy. A new level brings with it new pressure, new duty, new spiritual warfare. And if your heart is not anchored in Jesus, if your mind is not transformed in truth, if your lifestyle is not submitted to God's word, you won't make it. God's not holding you back. He's growing you up. God's not ignoring you. He's shielding you from something you're not yet ready to deal with. Consider how many things God did not let occur in your life. the interviews that didn't work out, the loves that didn't last, the doors that never swung open, rejection at the time. But in retrospect, you can see the guard of protection. And perhaps today, you're experiencing another divine delay. You're praying for a breakthrough, and God is responding with, not yet. Not because you're unloved, but because he cares for you too much to let you go half prepared. Jesus never rushed. He waited till the absolute right time to step into his purpose. And while others did not understand his timing, he was still in sync with the Father. What you need to do is stop measuring your clock against theirs. Quit trying to kick down doors God has locked for your protection. Quit forcing what God is still forming. You don't need it quicker. You need it deeper. You don't need it today. You need it in his time. Because when God says today, he's not giving you a gift. He's giving you a burden. And he won't put that type of load on shaky foundations. That pause, it's him making the unseen parts of you stronger. It's him strengthening your endurance, honing your judgment, enriching your faith. It's him educating you to depend not on your own understanding, but on his. Because when it comes at last, when the door opens, when the phone rings, when the breakthrough occurs, you'll be strong enough to stand under it. Not because you plunged into it, but because you were purified for it. Jesus didn't bypass the process, and neither will you. God isn't slow to answer his promise. He's simply ensuring that you won't waste what he's going to give you. Where you are in obedience today will dictate where you go next in blessing. That may not seem profound, but there's more weight to it than most men and women are ready to bear. We are living in an age where everybody desires the blessing, but not many desire to react with true obedience. We desire the open doors, but not the open hands. We desire favor, but not surrender. We desire breakthrough while yet bound to habits, attitudes, and decisions that are directly against the voice of God. But listen to me say something that will redefine the way you perceive your season. God releases blessings based on trust, not prayer. You can fast for it. You can weep over it. You can pray at midnight. But if your obedience is not in concert with what you're praying for, don't expect heaven to be loud. God is not moved by emotion. God is moved by obedience. God is moved by your capacity to say yes when it hurts, when it costs, when it takes you away from comfort and requires growth. Obedience is proof that you believe God is God, not merely in words, but in action. It's what demonstrates him that you're prepared for more. But here's the reality no one wants to say. You can't anticipate God to bless what he instructed you to give up. A few of you are still attempting to cling to individuals, behaviors, attitudes, and environments that God instructed you to leave behind a long time ago. And then you find yourself questioning why things feel stagnant. It's not that God is withholding from you, it's that you're still clinging to what he instructed you to let go. God does not promote rebellion. He blesses surrender. When you obey, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it hurts, even when you feel like you're moving in the opposite direction of your dream, that's when God begins unlocking doors. Because obedience puts you in a place of clarity. It puts you in a place of growth. And most importantly, it puts you in a place to deal with what you're seeking. Jesus himself demonstrated what radical obedience is. In the Garden of Gethsemane, as he was standing before the cross, he prayed, "Father, if it is possible, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." That's not weakness in submitting. That's strength in obedience. That's the kind of heart God can entrust with purpose. That's the posture heaven answers to. Not the loudest voice in the room, but the most obedient heart in the quiet. You can't bypass obedience and anticipate overflow. You can't defy the tough commands and anticipate effortless blessings. What God is attempting to establish in you is not ease, it's character. And your obedience level indicates whether or not you're prepared for the next blessing level. Because each blessing has an obligation, and God will not put something precious in the hands of someone who won't obey his voice. God is not in the business of advancing people who cannot obey simple things. If you won't listen to him when it's little, why would he trust you when it's large? If you don't listen to his voice in the quiet times, why would he trust you to speak his word to others in the public arena? Your next step is directly related to your present obedience, not your ability. Not your fans, not your potential, your obedience. Now comes the part that cuts to the bone. What you bear will break you if your character can't hold it. You can pray for a platform, but are you humble enough to manage it? You can ask for the financial blessing, but are you disciplined enough to steward it? You want the marriage, but can your heart receive true love without destroying it? Notice God's not just getting the blessing ready for you, he's getting you ready for the blessing. And that preparation is not quick. That preparation hurts. It hurts to prune, to stretch, to wait, to release, but it's essential because if you bypass that, the exact thing you pleaded with God for can break you. The blessing will bury you under its weight if you don't have the roots to support it. Character is what keeps you standing when the spotlight shines. It's what makes you stay stable when success hits you quick. It's what makes you remain steadfast when troubles increase. And character is tempered in the furnace of obedience. It's constructed in the hidden corners, in the invisible sacrifices, in the hidden tears, in the inner yeses to God. It's not how high you climb, it's how far you're willing to go with God when nobody is looking. Jesus did not walk in power before he first walked in obedience. He did not do miracles before he spent time alone with the Father. He did not receive the name above every name before he first went through the cross's suffering. That wasn't so much about salvation, that was about showing the kind of character God blesses. He was entrusted with resurrection power because he was first found obedient in suffering. Some of you are upset because you're feeling neglected, but what if God is still working on your character? What if he looks at you demanding power, but he's still molding your integrity? What if he's withholding the thing you want not to condemn you, but to safeguard your purpose? The fact is, talent may gain you attention, but only character will sustain you. You can deceive others with charm and charisma, but you cannot deceive God. He sees your motives. He sees the genuine you, and he loves you too much to let you rise too quickly. Because a platform without groundwork is risky. Influence without adulthood is a snare, and God will never allow the gift to surpass the person who possesses it. So don't loathe the season you are in. Don't curse the process. Don't hurry the proving ground. This is where your strength is forged. This is where your roots become deep in Christ. This is where you learn to walk like Jesus, not merely in power, but in purity. Because when your character is good, when your heart is right with heaven, when your spirit is guided by submission, there's no blessing too big for you to bear. Preparation is punishment when you're thinking about outcomes. That's the reality most don't ever want to hear. We're a culture hooked on outcomes, on forward momentum, on evidence, on outward fruit. We crave immediate proof that what we are doing is succeeding. And when we don't have it, we think something must be amiss. We doubt God. We doubt ourselves. We begin to embrace the lie that we have been forgotten, that we have failed, or worse, that God is punishing us. But what if the pain you are experiencing isn't punishment at all? What if it's preparation? What if the wait is divine and the quiet is strategic? God doesn't work according to your emotional clock. He's not motivated by your emotion. He's motivated by purpose. And sometimes purpose needs pressure. Sometimes the exact thing that you believe is shattering you is actually constructing you. But when your focus is on outcomes rather than polish, all you will experience is frustration. You'll miss the hand of God molding your heart because you're too concerned with the clock. You'll begin to hate the very season God is employing to prepare you for what comes next. Jesus had a process prior to his public ministry. He didn't circumvent steps. He didn't bypass the wilderness. The Son of God, perfect, sinless, holy, nevertheless had to be led by the Spirit into the wilderness, not for punishment, but for preparation. That wilderness season didn't sound like glory. It sounded like solitude. It sounded like proving. It sounded like quietness. But it was there in the wilderness that his character was strengthened, his identity was confirmed, and his obedience was tested. If Jesus needed to be prepared in silence, why would you assume you will be promoted in comfort? Some of the greatest development in your life is occurring in seasons when you sense nothing's happening. You believe you are standing still, yet your faith is being stretched. You believe God is far away, but he's closer than ever, observing how you react to stillness, how you manage silence, how you navigate the space between the promise and its delivery. And that space, that hurt, unknown, bewildering in-between place, is where true faith is conceived. Not the faith that yells loud in church, but the kind of faith that follows God when you don't get it, the kind of faith that continues to pray when the response hasn't materialized. The kind of faith that has faith in God even when he seems to be hiding. Preparation takes away the exterior. It reveals what's beneath. When you can't rely on the applause, then you're compelled to rely on God. When you don't get results, you're compelled to dig deeper. When you're not receiving affirmation, you learn how to root yourself in the Word, in prayer, in obedience, and in the presence of Jesus. That is not punishment. That is training. And training does not always resemble progress. At times it resembles repetition. At times it seems nothing is being altered. But heaven notices what people do not. God notices the internal change before the outer achievement. He's observing your heart, your stance, your willingness to trust him even when the result does not make sense. You might be asking for a breakthrough, but God is creating your backbone. You might be praying for promotion, but God is strengthening your endurance. Because what he's getting you into demands strength you don't yet possess, and his love is so flawless, he won't allow you to receive it until you're willing and able to bear it. The wait is not exclusion, it's a school, and God is the instructor who won't let you graduate ill-prepared. What seems like punishment is usually the tempering of your blade, the refining of your heart, the purifying of your intention. It's not rejection, it's polish, and polish hurts. But so does destiny when you attempt to step into it ill-prepared. You don't grow in comfort, you grow in consistency. That's another fact that most people fight against because it requires discipline. Comfort is great, but it does not make you grow. It makes you stay stuck, soft, reliant on feelings to keep going. But God did not invite you to comfort. He invited you to grow. He invited you to be more than you were. He invited you to walk like Jesus, and Jesus didn't walk in ease. He walked in conviction. Consistency is the indicator that your faith is not based on emotions. It's the evidence that you've grown up past motivation and into spiritual accountability. Anyone can follow when it's easy. Anyone can worship when the gates open. But can you be loyal when it's plodding, when it's difficult, when it's silent? Can you still serve when no one says thank you? Can you still pray when nothing happens? Can you still show up when your heart is shattered and your spirit is exhausted? Because that's what makes you strong in the eyes of God. Not perfection, not performance, but the choice to keep going when you want to quit. Growth doesn't come from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do consistently. The early morning prayers when no one sees you. The silent sacrifices that only God knows about. The quiet acts of obedience that build a foundation beneath your feet. That's where strength is born. That's where spiritual authority is cultivated. Jesus was consistent. He prayed all the time. He withdrew from people to come close to the Father. He remained focused on his purpose despite people not knowing him, rejecting him, and conspiring against him. He did not give up. He did not waver. He did not pursue comfort. He pursued the will of his Father consistently. If they want to bear what God has given them, they must construct the type of consistency that withstands storms. They must become anchored so deep in Christ that the wind doesn't take them off track. They must remain steadfast even when the reward isn't apparent, because authentic growth isn't boisterous, it's gradual, it's steady, it's developed in the inner recesses, not the limelight. The reality is that most people lose their opportunity because they tire of coming without applause. They give up the task because the outcome does not come quickly enough. But if you desire what God desires for you, you must demonstrate to Him that you can be relied upon when it is difficult, when it is secret, when it is burdensome. God is not calculating your value based on how many people applaud you. He's observing your character when no one is looking. He's seeing your consistency, not for one day, but for life. Because purpose isn't founded on talent, it's founded on trust. And trust is created by consistency, by walking with Jesus daily, whether you feel like it or not, by praying when you are weary, serving when you're behind the scenes, and believing when it's dark. God is making plans for you that take more than a fleeting emotional high. They take roots. They take discipline. They take the kind of maturity that grows only in repetition, in quiet, and in seasons where you can't see the reward immediately. Faith isn't passive. It's preparation underway. It's not sitting idle waiting for something to occur. It's not copying the same prayer every time hoping heaven rains a miracle down on your head while remaining the same emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Faith is action. Faith is movement. Faith is when you think that God has heard you, and now you're taking the necessary steps in order to achieve that belief, even if you don't see the outcome yet. Faith isn't about how you feel. It's about a lifestyle. And most of all, it's preparation. When you really believe that God has a plan, you live accordingly. You don't simply talk about it, you prepare for it. You don't hope so much, you build. You don't dream so much, you obey. The evidence of faith is not in what you say when you worship, it's in what you do the second the music stops. Faith is laying the table before the meal is served. It's filling the bag before you see where you're going. It's constructing the ark before there's a hint of rain. See Noah. God instructed him to construct an ark when there was no storm to be seen, and he did not complain. He did not wait for the clouds to gather. He simply moved. He prepared. And because he had faith, his preparation became his salvation. That is what true faith does. Prepare even when there is no evidence. That is what God is looking for. That is the kind of faith that moves heaven. Too many are telling they're believing for something, but their life gives no indication of it. You tell you're believing for a breakthrough, but your habits remain the same. You tell you trust God for a relationship, but you're not healing, growing, or becoming the type of person who can maintain one. You claim to have faith for a platform, but you're not preparing messages, studying, or ministering where you are. That's not faith, it's fantasy. And God's not rewarding fantasy. He's responding to faith that moves in obedience. Jesus didn't merely possess faith in the Father's plan. He lived it out. Each step he made toward the cross was a step of faith. He didn't simply say he trusted God. He showed it with his life. And that's what you're being asked to do. Not to sit around and wish for change, but to move like you already know change is coming. To live in a manner that says, God, I trust you enough to act on what I haven't seen yet. Faith is constructing the foundation before the door swings open. Faith is practicing the message before the mic ever finds its way into your hand. Faith is learning the word as if God is going to utilize you tomorrow. Because perhaps he is. Perhaps he is observing how you are getting ready, how you are taking care of this moment, how you're arriving in the quiet. Faith without works is dead, not due to works earning salvation, but because works manifest faith. God is not waiting on you to be perfect. He's waiting for you to be positioned. And you position yourself by preparing. You prepare by demonstrating for him, through your actions, that you're ready for what he said, that you're not daydreaming, you're getting into position. You're sweeping the house like the guests are already coming. You're entering the room like the opportunity is already here. You're trusting his voice above what you can see around you. That's the kind of faith that opens doors. Now let's discuss the latter half of this, the one that slices deep. God isn't ignoring you, he's purifying you for what's ahead. One of the most devious lies the enemy wants you to believe is that God is silent because he doesn't care, that your prayers are being ignored, that your tears fall on ground that is barren of him. But that's not true. God is not distant, he's on purpose. And more often than not, what we think is silence is actually sanctification, not rejection, refinement. When God is refining you, he's not attempting to hurt you. He's attempting to make you stronger. He's shedding off what can't accompany you to your next season. He's letting the pressure show what's weak, what's prideful, what's still broken, what's still unhealed, because he knows what lies ahead, and he loves you too much to leave you unprepared. Refinement is never comfortable. Fire's not warm. It burns. It cleanses. It purifies. It reveals. And just as gold must be purified by fire before it can be of use to you, your heart, your character, your spirit must be purified by the fire before you're ready to bear what God has for you. If you bypass purification, you sabotage your own future. If you stay away from the heat, you move to the next stage still holding on to stuff that will ruin your blessing. Jesus experienced refinement. He was tested. He was tried. He was misunderstood. He was betrayed. But in all of it, he never lost the Father in mind. He remained submitted. He remained obedient. He remained aligned. That's what real refinement looks like. Not merely pain, but purpose in the pain. Not only trials, but also transformation through the trials. Each moment Jesus spent on this earth was part of a heavenly process that trained him to achieve his purpose, and it is the same for you. God isn't quiet because he doesn't love you. He's quiet because he's observing how you react in the dark. Will you still trust him? Will you still obey? Will you still worship? That's refinement. Not merely waiting, but waiting with the right heart. Not merely surviving, but growing. Not merely asking, but adapting. That's where your faith comes to maturity. That's where your roots sink deep. That's where your perseverance is formed. We all want to speak of blessings. Blessings, unrefined, create entitlement. And entitlement destroys what God sought to raise up. So God doesn't hurry the process. He knows what pressure does. Pressure purifies. Pressure prioritizes. Pressure reminds your focus of him. Pressure takes away the things that distracted you when life was good. Pressure eliminates the idols you didn't even know you had. And it brings you back to a position where Jesus is sufficient. Refinement brings dependence. It reminds you that you can't do this in your own might, that your ability isn't sufficient, that your strategy isn't sufficient, that your relationships won't hold up. Only God will. Only his power. Only his grace. And when you emerge from that fire, when you've been tested, when you've been shattered, when you've learned to lean wholly on him, you're ready, not only for the blessing, but for the responsibility that comes with it. The quiet is accomplishing something. The waiting is accomplishing something. God is not neglecting you. He's making an investment in you. He's growing in you what you will need to bear the promise. He's adding depth to you. And when the time comes, when the work within you is finished, what you bear won't overwhelm you. It will crown you, not because you pushed it, not because you pursued it, but because you let yourself be shaped for it. You've heard it all, and now you need to cut the playing small with your calling. This is not about being inspired for a second. It's about making a choice to live like you're being readied, not punished. If God hasn't opened the door yet, it's not because he forgot. It's because he's constructing something within you that the door will demand on the other side. Your obedience is important. Your consistency is important. Your obedience is important, because what God is getting ready for you is heavy. And God cares about you too much to allow what you are carrying to destroy you. So keep preparing when nobody will see. Keep appearing when it seems futile. Keep believing Jesus even in the quiet. Because when God acts, he acts suddenly. He acts forcefully. And he acts for those who were prepared. God isn't simply penning you a novel. He's penning one with you. So ready as if it is arriving. Because it is. God's not finished. Jesus is yet advancing. And your readiness is not in vain. Just keep going. You're nearer than you believe. Don't bear the question mark, bear the call.